everybody. We are here at Best Whole New World, and today we're talking about raising soulful children, trusting your inner guidance as a parent. And I have beautiful, just stunningly beautiful. She's a beautiful queen, Maria. She is there. Just look at that, all coming all the way from London, England.
Yep.
And Maria has an awesome 8-year-old.
He's sweet. Yeah.
And what is your, in talking about, hey, Diana.
Hello, Diana.
He's just jumped right on. Calling from her beach house.
Enjoy. It's so cold here.
Is it? How cold is it in London?
I don't know, but it's barely a few degrees, like Celsius degrees. I'm not sure what it is in Fahrenheit, but it's like just above 0. It froze last night.
See, it's okay because we had a cold, maybe that same cold snap that came through here. We're like -5. Oh, it's only America that does Fahrenheit in the world. You know that, right?
I do know that.
Right? Everybody thinks that everybody else, like they go, oh, I'm like, no, it's just United States that does Fahrenheit. Everybody else is Celsius. So get on the program, United States, and then we'll all be in unison.
London is weird though. Like England is weird though, because they would have miles and then they would have pounds and stones, but then they will also have, like Celsius. And I was like, it's very confusing because I don't know how to measure in pounds, or for us it's kg.
Yeah.
And it's like, just, we're in Europe, just adopt it.
Right. No, it's like being in Canada, we had both, right? So when I grew up, I did the pounds and the feet and the inches and the gallons. And then we switched when I was about 10 or 12, but I'd already learned the other stuff. So still, I can recite and go, okay, so that's, this much in pounds. I'm like, okay, that's how much in kilograms. Yes, but the Celsius I've adopted too. So, okay, so, and you're telling us it's, she's probably like, I don't know, she's early morning, so it's still cool there when she's getting up in Florida. We hope you have a beautiful day. So what would you say is your most wonderful aha moment being a parent?
I think that my most wonderful aha moment being a parent was the moment I became a parent. So the moment I actually gave birth to him, like I remember going with his dad towards the hospital, and I was thinking, I'm not ready for this. Can you stay in for a few more days? I'm not ready for this. Right. And then he was born in the morning, and then even though he was born like 4:30 in the morning, I just couldn't get my eyes off him. So I didn't sleep like for the entire day because I was just looking at him, and I was like, surely, I know that everyone feels the same when they give birth, but it's like, it's an impersonal experience as a species, but very personal as a person, as an individual. So I remember looking at him and I'm thinking, wow, this is what love is. I had no idea what love is. Like, I know I love my parents, I love my friends, my brother, but it has nothing to do with what you feel when you give birth. So that was my aha moment. I was like, no one and nothing will come before him ever again, Yeah,
I can so relate because when Destiny, who'll be 23 soon, when she was born, right, I remember people going, so what is it? And I was like, it's a baby. It wasn't like, it didn't matter if it was a boy or a girl. I was just like, it's a baby. Wow, this is like amazing. All the changes that you go through in your body. But and you have to, for me, I feel like mothers have an advantage over anybody else in the world because we had to surrender. Yep. We had to surrender and receive what was going on in our body. We had no control over it. No matter what we thought we were doing, I remember for me, it was like the last thing that needed to grow were my breasts. Right? I always had, nice. I was like, so all these other women, they were like, oh, I just want to get pregnant so my breasts will get bigger. I'm like, they're okay. They're And that was like the first thing that started spreading. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever.
I remember that.
But that aha of that beautiful, wonderful child. And so in that mesmerization and awe, all you've been is the perfect parent, right?
Yeah, I mean, the perfect parent that I could have been at that moment in time. I don't think that every day. There are moments when doubts or sometimes regrets kick in, because obviously we come with a baggage. You know, we were raised by families with their own values, with their own traumas, with their own things, and so on. It goes generation after generation after generation. So obviously I have a lot of learned behaviors and patterns from my parents that I actually wasn't aware of them until very, very late in my 30s, to be honest. Mm-hmm. Because in your 20s, you're just like out there and doing your thing. You don't really I don't know, I wasn't like, I believed in God and so on, but I wasn't really aware that my patterns of behavior were triggering any kind of like similar situations. Mm-hmm. So then I have my son and I catch myself doing the same things that I used to not like so much in my parents when they were doing it to me. And I'm thinking, and obviously I stop myself and I'm thinking, you did it again. Like all these things that he learns from all these little moments, you did it again and again and again. And it's good that I have awareness that I didn't have before, obviously. But at the same time, sometimes regret kicks in or panic kicks in. Did I do the best I could? Have I taught him anything that will hold him back? Like we all go through different kind of experiences, and we all go through moments when we think we're not good enough or worthy enough, or we actually, deal with individuals that make us feel like that. So I'm thinking, what in my behavior could actually make him feel, like self-sabotaging himself in the future. But at the same time, I do try to tell him all the time that I love him and that I trust in him and that he's amazing and I support him. And even if he's like doing something that he shouldn't, I'm still there to love him. We had this discussion a few years ago. I think he was about 4 or 5. Right. And I got upset with something that he did. And he's like, do you still love me if I did that? And I was like, of course, I will always love you. There is no, so I guess that then I understood that in their heads, even though they don't say much, in their heads, they have this thing like, oh, I'm not liked anymore. My mom doesn't like me anymore. So I keep repeating this to him that, yes, I love you, but I have to also make you aware of things that you do that are maybe not for your own good. Yeah. We have a lot of like back and forth. Yeah. He's like 8 going on 14.
Well, I think that's that, from my perspective, it's that inner wisdom that children are really connected. And I feel like they are much more open than we were. And it's just like, the software architecture and the whole internet and the app is they are receiving clear. You look at a lot of these younger kids again that are doing some amazing things. And you then can go, well, no wonder Mozart could play the piano back, so there were periods where we've always had child prodigies in the past, but in the last, 100 years, they were like, for sure non-existent.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And now these kids are coming on. I don't know if you've ever seen, what's the show? Do you know Ellen DeGeneres?
Of course.
Okay.
I grew up with American television. I'm fluent in American television, not so much in British.
Well, I think she and Steve Harvey produced a show on something about kids, and they had some great, amazingly talented kids that did, and I remember this one little boy, he was Japanese, and he could, or I think it was Japanese, and he could imitate Bruce Lee. Do you remember that?
Wow.
It was like from my perspective, he was channeling Bruce Lee. Okay. Or Bruce Lee had entered his body. They put the picture of like the movie of Enter the Dragon on behind him. And this little, like, I don't know what he was, like 4.
Oh, wow.
He's got the checkers and the thing, and he's doing every move and everything exactly like the movie. And I was like, there's no way you learn that, right? Like, you have to see it and embody it. And I think that's what kids do, is they absorb the whole experience. And so when they, as a parent, you're drawing a boundary, but they feel that emotion with the boundary too. And sometimes those signals get mixed for them because they're going, well, you know, does that mean you still love me, right? And you're going, of course, like, you know, you were this great gift that came to me. And as you just said in the beginning, that was the greatest love that you've ever experienced, and it's totally different. And you just, until you have that moment.
Define it in words. There's no way.
No.
I used to tell my, you know, like my friends or people I met when they were asking me about the baby, how's the baby? And I was like, I used to tell them, like, I'm not trying to be condescending on you. It's just that you can't understand unless you have your own.
Yeah.
And this is simple as that. And it's a lot of like hormones involved. And I remember that in the first few weeks of his life, because we all know about cot death and the risk of, you know, babies dying in the first 12 weeks. And you feel like so emotional, like you have this like little person in your hands, and you know that something can go wrong, and then they won't be there. Like, it happens. Mm-hmm. And then I remember, like, I was like, you know, feeding him or just holding him and crying. I was like streaming down and talking to God, like, please don't let anything bad happen to him, because he's just amazing. Or I used to look at him, and obviously he was a baby, and I was looking at him and I was thinking, where did you come from? And I was asking him, where did you come from? Please tell me. Yeah. It's like some amazing moments, especially in the first few days. And panic as well.
Yeah. Well, I think that's where the mother that has 7, 8 children, you know, is just like, okay, the 7th and 8th is entirely different. I mean, Diana's got 4 or 5 of her own. So, I mean, for me, I noticed just with 2 is the first one, you're like, everything's new, right? So you're totally up on what people are telling you, and you're trying to trust your own inner guidance, you know, what's real. And that there was that joke I remember about the soother going, okay, so when the kid drops the soother, when the first one, you're like boiling it and sterilizing it, you know, and everything. The second one, you know, it kind of drops on the floor and you're running under the tap. The third one drops and you just like shove it back in the mouth and you're like, okay, there you go. You know? Because you're more relaxed in that sense of being a parent and trusting on a, you know, that really some of the things that you worried about before you can let go of. And I feel that's the same way as kids grow up, is you realize the more you can trust yourself and go, yeah, it's okay. Really, I might have issues still with my parents, right? But I am working through them as a mother. Because I think this generation for a lot is the in-between generation.
Yep.
Right? They're just looking at us going, we know you got issues. We know you got issues. We're okay. We still love you. Are you going to get over them? You know, are you going to keep feeling that I'm going to pick up on them?
I think that everything that you heal or you're aware of, maybe it's a lot said, but you know, you're just aware of things, and then you're trying to reciprocate. I mean, not only with your own children, but with your parents as well. You're trying to be more understanding. They did the best they could. And I know that everyone says that, and it's such a cliche. They did the best they could with whatever. And then you're asking, okay, why didn't you read a book? I mean, anyway, this is not the point. The point is that the moment, it's the whole culture as well, because, you know, I was left-handed. I'm still left-handed, but my father's family used to make my mom, you know, like not hit me like hard, but like, you know, always asking me to use my right hand. When I went school, because it was communism, so no one had to be different. Everyone was the same. They made me write with my right hand. And it was a difficult thing because I knew how to write, read, and do maths before I went to school. So I learned by myself, and it was difficult for me to actually start writing with my right hand. But that was the generation. And, you know, now my mom says, I regret doing that because I know that that was a big thing for you. But I didn't know better than that. You know, like I listened to your grandmother, I listened to my relatives, to the teachers. So it's fine. You know, you get over it, and you look from the parent perspective to them and think, I'm not perfect, and I probably screw up my kid in many, many ways, little ways, let's say, but I'm not doing it, you know, ill-intentioned. I'm trying my best. So I think that they tried their best with the baggage that they had. Obviously, there wasn't a generation where they talked about their problems or inner guidance or inner feelings. Like there was no such thing. You know, they went to work, they provided for the family, you were washed, clean, you know, your homework was done, your nails were cut, fine. You know, no one asked you, oh, how do you feel today?
Well, and you have to, I mean, think about it, right? Because you grew up in Romania, right? So for those that, and you're in a you know, farm like area in the terms of, you know, like what are you talking to? Really, there's nature. It's certainly unlike now, right? That we're plugging on here on the internet. We're connecting between London and Canada, and we're broadcasting sort of around the world. And you could pick up a book anywhere. You know what I mean? Like there's so much information out there that people can tune into. Whereas back then, really all people had to tune into was the ancestors or whatever was the community conversation. And the person that felt different, that truly felt different, had to have super courage, you know, and really risk being ostracized to break out of that environment.
I agree. I totally agree. I mean, most of the time, and this is an Eastern European thing, and probably it's a generation thing as well, we were raised by criticism, and not because they weren't probably happy with us. They wanted us to do better. So if I came home and I said, oh, I got a 9, we had grades from 1 to 10. 5 is a pass, 10 is the max.
Right.
So I got a 9 in literature. It's not good enough. Why didn't you get a 10? And I remember me, an 8-year-old or 9-year-old, I was like, oh, you know, like something was on my chest. Like I'm never, you know, like whatever I do is not enough. You know, right. I always have to be a 10 in order for them to be happy. But they didn't see it like that. They saw it like, you have so much potential. Why aren't you pushing for a 10? Because I know you can. Obviously, it was a distorted communication, because what I got was they're not happy. Although I don't think that they cared that much if it was a 9 or a 10. And that was the way we were raised. What mark did your cousin take, like have, which was in the same class? Or, you know, like, why can't you be more like that person? Look at them, how well behaved they are as children, and you're doing this. And it's debilitating for a child to actually always be compared to someone else, because everyone's different. I had qualities that others didn't, and vice versa. And of course, that kind of like raised a lot of resentment and anger. Like, why aren't you happy? Why do you have to compare myself to everyone? And it was also arbitrary. Sometimes I would say, yeah, but he's going on a holiday. I want to go there. I don't care what other people do, you know? I don't care what other people do. We care about what we do in the house. And then the next day, conflicting messages. Okay, so how did you do in school? Yeah. And your cousin, how did she do? I was like, you said you didn't care, you know? So these things, like, for example, I'm trying to be aware of the fact that, like, my mom used to tell me, I didn't want to praise you too much, because then you would be too full of yourself. Right. It's not good to praise too much, because then you're just like going to lose your head. So she tried to keep us very grounded, let's just say. Whereas I praise more, but I try to praise specifically on things. I loved your painting because I love how you behave here because that showed this and this and this. Obviously, I tell him he's great as well, because he is.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also trying to, just make a point of why he's appreciated, like what the hard work or the dedication or the time he put in, and so on. So that's something that I'm trying to be aware of how I praise him.
Yeah, I think that's really important part, because I think we've almost swayed, right, from feeling our generation. You're a little younger than me, so in that sense of we've gone from feeling like we were criticized when they just had this ideal of perfectionism, right, that they wanted us to strive and do better, to then almost over here in North America, for sure, it's like praising, but it's empty almost, right? So you hear from kids that have grown up in their 20s and they go, well, they told me I was great no matter what I did, right? I came home with the C and they said it's great. And, the child then it's the opposite. The child can feel that they're not feeling fulfilled, but then they're getting told they're doing a great job, right? And so really being aware of your child is so important, because I remember, oh gosh, it was such a gift. I was taking this like one of those big, huge landmark. Do you know landmark education?
No.
No. Anyway, so there's like 400 or 500 of us up there, and the idea was, one of the things during the program is to allow yourself to be the participant that's up there being coached.
Mm-hmm.
So this 23-year-old girl's up there, and she's like, my mom ruined my life, and the coach is like, okay, so tell me about it. And she's like, well, she never let me go to school until I finished eating my oatmeal. And I remember I was just like doing my best not to break out in hysterical laughing, right? And she's like, and the coach is like, and because of that, that's ruined your life. And she's like, yes, because I did not like my oatmeal and I didn't want to eat it. So I was always late for school. The kids made fun of me for being late for school. I got called names for being late for school. And if my mom had just let me go to school without oatmeal, my life would be entirely different.
Mm.
And in that moment, I thought, okay, regardless of my intention of, I'd be let's eat something healthy to my kids, regardless of that intention that I'm thinking that's going to be something good, they can take it entirely differently. So that little experience, that woman sharing, I just said, you know what, there's going to be something that I'm going to do. And even though I'm going to feel it's in the best intentions, they're going to receive it differently. Now that they're 22 and 18, they've also said, Mom, you might want to give away that thought. Right, that there's something that and I was like, true. But the idea is we're all sending out messages and we're receiving messages. Mm. And even though our kids can be going like this or just looking like deer in the headlights, they are still experiencing other things. And we may or may not ever know their entire truth until they get to be older. And then we turn around as we talk to our own parents and say, you know what you did?
Yeah, that's true. I totally agree with that. I wanted to just step back a little because you were talking about praising. Mm-hmm. And I remember when Aidan was very young, I read a very interesting book called Nurture Shock. Now, Nurture Shock is about demythicizing some of the beliefs that we carry regarding raising children. And one of the things it's a very research-based book, so it's all about surveys and so on. So it's not just some self-development book. It's actually, hi Kate, it's actually science-based. And I can't see it anymore. I hope you're still there.
Kate's still there. There, you can see her now. She's saying
Jacqueline.
hello. I'm here. Oh, Maria, keep going.
Do you guys can see me?
I can see you.
because I can't see Jacqueline anymore.
I can see you, so just keep talking. How do we say that? Yes, they're giving you the thumbs up. So hold on. Can you see the comment? Yes, keep talking.
Okay, cool. All right. So I was reading that book when Aiden was very young, and one of the things was about praising, and that praising without a specific goal in mind is actually more damaging. So going back to the North American way of raising children, saying to your child all the time, good job, you're awesome, amazing, good job. It's not necessarily going to make him or her, ready to face anything, because in a study that they did in school, they realized that children who were praised like this, like you're just the best and you're amazing and whatnot, they were less likely to try challenging tests, because they didn't want to disappoint their parents, their expectations, like they're great, they're amazing. So they would choose the tests that were easier, and they were failing the tests that were complicated, just because they actually did not have enough self-trust,
right,
to keep on going. So it made me think, because obviously, you want to tell your child you're beautiful, you want to tell your child you're amazing, and I'm so proud of you, but at the same time not focusing on specific things like, oh, you've done great. I love the colors in this painting, and I love the way you drew those I don't know, monster arms, and it's so real, and it's so, like, be specific on the things that you're praising about. I also, what I'm trying to do in our house, there are no punishments and no rewards. At some point, Aiden wanted to basically, he offered to do the dishes if I paid him, and he offered to tidy up his room if I paid him. And I was thinking about it, but then I realized that I actually wouldn't want him to do this for money, because he lives in this house. It's his responsibility to put his plate in the sink, or to make his bed in the morning, and not expect anything in return. And I keep explaining to him the same thing. We live in this house, both you and I clean my room, I clean everywhere. So I wouldn't want to, I'm happy to give you pocket money from time to time to save up for your Pokemon cards, but I would not want to make a habit out of paying him to do the chores. I remember when I was growing up, my dad offered a few times, but I was quite old, like probably high school, if maybe less. My mom had this she had this habit of washing everything by hand, especially my dad's shirts that he would go to work with. So they needed to be really, really, cleaned, especially around the collar. So someone actually had to be in the bathroom and do that manually, and then put it to the washing machine. And my mom is a pharmacist, so she's got these kind of little things that she really does her way. So my mom was tired and she didn't feel like it. So my dad was like, oh, here you go, have some money, go and wash my shirts. And I remember it was really cool and I loved it, but that did not happen every time.
Right.
Every time I had to do something. My mother, who was raised by my grandmother in the countryside, she had this idea that I would need to actually, when I'm already 18 and I'm going off to uni, I need to know how to clean, how to cook, how to, take care of myself. So of course that, that was very frustrating for me as growing up, because it was all about like some other kids were going out and I had to, you know, wash the windows and clean the carpets and so on. It was very much manual labor in the house back then. So I didn't like it. And sometimes I was like, I don't want to do this, but I would still do it. And my mom would be like, you missed the spot. And she would come after me and do it. And I felt a bit like, why am I doing it? You know, like frustrated. Why am I doing it? If you come and you cleaning after me, that means I didn't do a good job. So it didn't feel right. But at the same time now, being a grown woman, and also when I left to university and then I left to England, I appreciate what she's taught me, because she taught me to be self-sufficient. And I know maybe it wasn't the, you know, maybe she was a bit too harsh on myself, on me, but I learned a lot. And I actually now you know, I appreciate what she gave me, this thing of being clean and, you know, knowing how to do everything in the house without necessarily counting on anyone else. And of course, now these days we have, you know, cleaners and when you have a partner, you're expecting them to weigh in. But a lot of things that were frustrating for me as a child, right now I think, oh, actually she did a great thing. And then there are things that I would have liked them to maybe
did
handle it in a different way, like maybe push me into doing sports more, and keeping up with any kind of organized sports that I did, which I was just quitting after a while because I just like was bored.
Right.
And because my parents were not very like sporty people, I don't think that they realized, for example, how important sports are for a growing child. So I think it's all a give and take. I think that, I think that it's every day it's a new challenge, and every day you can do a little bit better. And there are days when I'm losing it and I realize that I don't handle it well at all. But at the same time, as I was saying in the beginning, I don't think that always thinking of myself as not being as good mother as I would like to be, and the perfect mother that I would like to be, I don't think it's healthy. And, you know, I think that the combination between healing the relationship with the parents and understanding their point of view and their come from, and being aware of not repeating the same patterns of behavior with your own child, plus cutting yourself some slack for every time you made a mistake. I think that it only can help in this parenting the soulful children. And of course, when I was Aiden's age, I thought that my parents were the best thing in the world and that they were the best parents in the world. And he's telling me the same thing. He's telling me, you are the best mommy in the world, and I love you so much. And it's funny because he will not voluntarily go cuddle anyone apart from myself and his dad. So he's not that kind of very warm and very touchy child. But with me, he continues to be. And I love this because he's expressing his feelings, and I think that's very, very important. So,
yeah,
Kate,
you know what
are you saying? We have the No Charge song lyrics printed out and stuck on our fridge, which we refer to. We refer the girls to with humor and laughter whenever they. Yeah, exactly. So I usually try to. Everyone blames the other. Yeah, it's true. It is true. He tells me sometimes like, well, how do I get I promised him that if he wants a PS4, which I'm hoping that we're gonna delay buying, if he wants a PS4, I'll put a third of the money, but he needs to come up with the other thirds. And it's so obviously he's looking for pocket money as much as he can. But at the same time, every time he asks me, oh, I'll just do the dishes today, can you please give me some money? Or I'll just dust my windowsill. I tell him no. And I explain to him why. I explain to him the fact that these are things that he needs to do because it's part of being responsible for his own things. And because one day when he's not going to be under my roof, he will have the knowledge to do all these things by himself without, feeling like helpless, I think. Without feeling helpless.
I think when there's a whole...
Do you have any questions?
We can do on this one, because for me, raising a soulful...
Do you have any experiences you want to share? Anything that comes up for you and how you deal with it? I think that another important thing is to connect with mothers and parents. Yeah, I think that bouncing ideas. Hello.
Hi. I was going to say, Maria.
Yes.
Can you say, is that I do still feel like so many parents are really looking through this whole perception of parenting one-dimensionally from the standpoint of, this was my parents, this was my upbringing, this is my kid, this is what I'm going to do or not do. And I feel like we need to broaden that whole scope in raising a soulful children, just as if the internet's expanded, what they're actually perceiving and receiving. So it isn't, we're leaving this one-to-one transactional world idea. And I've got some great stuff that I can share what I saw with my kids. It's about receiving again. And these kids know, but we sometimes start to teach them that they have to do something.
Yes.
In order to get something. And that's really an old paradigm from my perspective, because as we realize now how fast things are changing in the world and receiving, well, even as Kate, we know, with just sharing about what she was receiving, having, being basically staying at home right now in her present situation and learning how to receive from others, right? This is what we want. I remember when I'll just quickly share and we'll talk, but then we'll talk next time. But when Destiny, she was probably one in that area. She started walking at 9 months, and we would go to the mall. And the first rule of thumb was, you can go, you can touch, whatever, play, but it stays here. Okay. So she would go and she'd look at things and whatever, and we'd go by. It always was the case. We'd go by a store. They might have blue, green balloons or whatever, in the window. And she'd say, I want a purple balloon. And I was wise enough to say, okay, let's go ask. Because I just always allowed her to stay in sort of possibility. And I was amazed because she'd go in and ask, and the person would say, oh, let me just go see. And they would go to the back room, or they would look under the counter, but somehow they pulled up one purple balloon. And she had the purple balloon, and out she walked from the store. And things like this happened to her quite a lot. I would set parameters on her about gift. I remember when she was 5 or 6 or something, saying, no Barbies, right? Okay? No Barbies. Okay, we're not going for that, that whole idea. And wouldn't you know it, the one little boy that I failed to talk to his mother, he's the one that gives her the Barbie that she always wanted. And I was like, how'd she do that? Right? So to empower your kids to be able to ask for the things that they truly want, and then allow themselves to come up with other ideas versus what they think, mom's going to give me money for my PS3. This is a game we could play with, if Aiden, we can coach on that, you can coach Aiden on how to create his PS3 without just necessarily you coming up with it.
That's right? A good idea. Yeah.
Are you up for that one? Because there's all kind, so play that game. We're going to play the PS3 game.
that was a delaying tactic, because I know that it takes a long time for him to put together that money. So I'm trying to delay it as much as possible, because he loves his games a lot.
Yeah, and I think that for boys, that's a whole other segment about the games they're attracted to and the impacts, like you mentioned about the Pokemon cards. And there's got lots of good stuff I want to share with you on that, but I mean, we could just keep talking all morning. I can see that. And we're going to come back not next week, right?
Yeah, I mean, I will let you know, because sometimes,
Okay. But Friday mornings, Friday afternoons, wherever you are in the world, we're going to be coming together and raising this conversation about raising soulful children and trusting our inner guidance being a parent. So,
one thing that I wanted to say was this, that because you said about the unidimensional way of parenting, I think that in the past, we were not necessarily acknowledged as children, as very, let's say, wise people that parents would have something to learn from. Right. Whereas now, my son is my greatest teacher, definitely. Only you need to listen, you just like follow his lead, and there's no way you can't learn amazing things from a child. So I think that their wisdom and their way of seeing the world through their innocent eyes, and all those manifesting techniques that Aiden does as well. It was like, I knew this was going to happen, or I knew like, it's amazing. Like the things he comes up with, it's just amazing. So it's more of forgetting about, oh, I'm the parent, there's nothing you can teach me, and you're here because I know more, and just look at them and actually learn from them the things that we forgot.
Yeah, that is so well said, because it's an everyday adventure when we are open to receive what they are sharing with us and giving us as the gift. Yeah, and I think you said that the children are our best teacher.
Yes,
because to me that was always like in scripture. That was the one thing in scripture that always stuck out to me. I was never really big. I wanted to go to church, but never really happened. I just never got it, but was the children are my true disciples. And that's what I felt, that natural awe and magic a child has. That is the presence of God, divine, Holy Spirit, unified field, whatever. They're in this space of anything's possible. And as long as they stay in that space, they continue to flourish. It's when we diminish it. And I think that's what's gone on, is we put so many parameters on kids now. They look at where the adults have, the baby boomers have left them with trash and garbage and dysfunctional businesses that are, and they're like, we don't want any of that. You're not happy, you're stressed, you're ill. We're going to change it. And your son is the next generation that is going to be even more innovative and creative and inherit so much blessings.
Yep. Totally feel it.
Kate, Diana, all your kids, there you go. Thanks for being with us. We're going to be there.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you so much for coming. I love you. We'll see you later.
I love you too. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.